I built an industrial sewing machine by myself. No step-by-step manual, just vibes, YouTube, and a lot of faith. I started building this machine Thursday at 5:30 p.m. and finished it Friday night at 9:30. This is not a flex. This is a warning. They don't tell you this part when you buy an industrial sewing machine, that you're basically assembling gym equipment. Was it hard? Yes. Is it possible? Also yes. The first thing that I took out of the box was the motor. And there is no clear step-by-step manual, no start here guide, and at some point you're just trusting YouTube strangers with your back and your sanity. The second box I opened was the actual sewing machine. When I tell you, this sewing machine is extremely heavy. I did need help getting it out of the car, so please do not try to be Superwoman. My fiance was at work, so I figured, let me try to put all this together myself. I guess I thought I was Superwoman. And here's the truth. You can do it by yourself, but you have to move slowly, carefully, and cautiously. This is not the time to rush and try to be cute. Protect your back if you have to, and also protect your body. And as you can see here, there's a lot of parts to this machine, so you just have to work slowly and be patient. In this video, I'm going to share what the process is really like, what surprised me the most, some troubleshooting at the end, and what I wish I knew before I ever opened the first box. And then finally, box number 3 was the actual table. As I was opening the box for the table, I realized it had some screws that had fallen out of one of the little small plastic packages, and it had fallen down inside the box. So if you open your boxes, just be sure that all of the screws are there, because had I just thrown this box outside, I probably would have lost a few screws, and that would have messed up everything. So in this box where the table is, you have the table legs. You also have the little drawer that's going to go under the table. You also have the foot pedal. And the actual table itself. So initially, when I took all of that stuff out of the box, I thought I could just set it up on top of the table that I already have in my sewing room. But then I realized it's going to be really hard to get the legs and the motor that I'm going to have to attach to the table off of this table. So I decided to start with attaching the motor on this table just to make it easier for myself so I don't have to bend over or get on the ground. And then after that, I am going to move to the floor. So to attach the motor, first there were these really big screws that had these little black rubber things in the package. And so those 3 screws went through the table, and then the motor just sits right on top. There was a few washers that had to go on top of that, and then the little bolts that screw everything in. So I did have a little wrench that I was using to tighten everything up. So you will need to make sure that you do have one to help you tighten up all the bolts and all the screws. So here I'm just tightening the motor to the table. And now I'm going to just attach the legs. So they came in separate pieces. So first you just take one piece, put it inside the other, and then just use some screws on both sides. And that way you can have an adjustable table. And then they also gave you like this little flat piece. It's like a little bracket that goes behind the screws. And that just helps it slide up and down. And so I just added that on next. And so I assembled one leg, and then I did the other one the exact same way. screwed the little bracket on. And then after that, I'm going to add the 2 little screws on the side so that way it can stop sliding up and down. And then afterwards, I started to work on the little foot pedal. So there was another little long railing. And this piece is going to go like underneath the table. But first, there was a little bracket that goes on the right side of the pedal. It's just easier to put it on the right side because there's a little rod that's going to attach the motor to the pedal. And so having it closer to the right side just makes it easy for the rod to pull down on the motor when you press the foot pedal. So now I'm just attaching, there was these little brackets with a little post that sticks out, and they kind of slide into the sides of the little foot pedal. And so I'm just putting those on. I used about 5 YouTube videos to put this all together. Like, this did not come at all, like I said in the intro, without any instruction manual. So I had to figure it all out on my own. So there was another rod that I had to go across both legs in the back. And so I attached that first. And then I just grabbed the little table feet. It was like 4 of them that you just screw underneath the table, underneath the little table legs. And now I'm just going to put the table on the floor so that way I can start attaching the foot pedal, the little bracket that holds the foot pedal. So I have it facing down. I'm just going to, they gave you a little bracket that goes on the inside. And you want to turn it long ways or horizontal inside the little hole underneath the legs of the table and screw it in. And that allows it to slide up and down depending on what position you want your foot pedal to be. And then I'm going to install the little drawer. So they give you 2 little black pieces to go on the side of the drawer to help the drawer slide open and closed, but I would recommend only adding 4 screws and not the one in the middle, just to make it easy for the drawer to slide open and closed. And once I positioned the legs on the underside of the table, I just screwed it in evenly. There was really no instructions on how to do that, so I just put it wherever I felt like it looked the best and just used my electric drill and screwed it in with the 4 screws that they give you. So now I flipped the table over and it's time to start preparing to put the sewing machine in. So they give you these little gray rubber stopper things, and so a few little bitty nails, and so I just nailed them in on the sides just to secure them in place. And then they also, on the opposite side, those little metal brackets, they give you those to slide in the holes on the opposite side. And so those little pieces pop in as well. But the little rectangular brackets on the opposite side, the metal part pokes into the sewing machine, and that's what kind of holds the sewing machine in place. And it also allows you to fold the sewing machine back whenever you have to fill the bin with oil underneath the sewing machine. It just makes it easy to just fold it back. So this little area that you put in first is the oil reservoir, and that's where you're going to pour the oil in. There is 2 little lines on there that shows you low, and then there's another one that says high. And so that's how you know how high to pour the oil in. And so after that, I started to put the knee lifter on. There's a little black round piece with a little metal rod hooked to it. And so that just goes right in the front underneath where you're going to be lifting your knee. So that way it lifts up on the presser foot. So after I attached that, I went ahead and secured some of the cords under the table, because they come with like these little plastic pieces with a nail on it, and it looks like a little hook in the shape of like a C. And basically it just helps you just secure the cord in place So I just pulled the cord to the back of the table, and then I just nailed those little pieces over it to secure it in place. And that probably would have been easier with the table flipped the other way, but I was just learning as I went along. And now I grabbed the rod on the floor on the right of me. So that little rod is gonna allow you to just hook on side of the bracket that's on the foot pedal, and then you just attach it to, there's a little black rod that sticks out underneath where the motor is, and you just attach the other end right through one of the holes that sticks out on that piece. And then when you press the foot pedal, that's what allows the motor to go. In the box, they give you 2 of those rods to attach the motor to the foot pedal, so I just used the longest one, but I guess it's whatever one just makes it comfortable for you to press on the foot pedal. So now I'm just underneath the table attaching that metal rod to the right side of the foot pedal. All right, so everything was good with the foot pedal. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and start putting in the sewing machine. This sewing machine is very heavy, so it goes right into those little gray rectangular metal pieces on the top of the machine. But the little hinge allows you to be able to just fold the sewing machine back, which makes it easy to adjust anything underneath the table. And like I said, add the oil in when it was time. It is heavy. So now I'm just going to attach the hand wheel on the side. There was 2 little screws that's on the inside of the hand wheel. If those 2 screws are not tightened, when you get ready to sew at the end, when I first tried to sew, the wheel was turning and the motor was moving, but the needle wasn't going up and down. So I've realized that those 2 little screws are very important. Like, you have to make sure that they are tightened, so that way the hand wheel engages the needle and the needle goes up and down. If not, if it just slips around without grabbing onto the wheel, then it's just not gonna sew at all. And the motor is gonna be moving, the wheel is gonna be moving, but the needle won't be going up and down. So at the end, I realized that was the issue that I had. And trying to get the belt on, at first I was like, now how am I gonna stretch this belt? But after folding the sewing machine back, I was able to just put the belt on easily. So just tilt the sewing machine back and then add the belt. So now I'm just attaching the thread stand. It comes with 2 spool rests, so that way your spools of thread can just rest on top of them. The little spool rod was pretty easy to install. Everything on that part was kind of self-explanatory. You just screw it onto the table, and then it comes with this little metal bracket to help you attach 2 pieces of the rod together. I did put the little spool retainers in upside down, but then I was able to just pull them up off of the little rod and flip it the other way. So as you can see in this video, it is upside down, but once I realized it was upside down, I just took it off and flipped it the other way. But I didn't notice it until I got ready to put the thread on, and I'm like, wait, this is totally upside down. I had my good burning smelling candle that my sister gave me going while I was working, because I just needed some really calm vibes in here while I was putting all this together. And then now there was a little round piece that covers the side of the motor underneath the table, and there were 3 little screws that kind of helps hold that in place. The screws that they give you sometimes are a little too long or a little too short, but I had 3 screws left, and it was hard as hell to try to get them into those little 3 holes underneath to cover up the side of the motor. And then there's a piece that comes in the box that you literally just have to nail down to the side of the table, and it literally just goes right in front the belt. And then there's a belt cover that goes over all of that. And so once you have that metal piece that comes in the package with the sewing machine, and like I said, you have it right in front of there's the metal wheel that's on that metal piece that goes right in front of the belt. And then you just put the belt cover on top of all of that, screw it all in. There's 2 black screws and 1 little silver metal screw that screws the little belt cover in. And then there's another little belt cover piece that goes in the back. And once that's screwed in to the table, so that stuff, you just make marks on the table and just screw it in. Like, there was nothing to show you where to put that stuff on the table. Also, like with the little drawer underneath and the legs, like you just kind of have to measure and make sure you doing it the way you want to do it. Because there's no instructions to tell you how to attach the legs, how far apart from the edge of the table, or anything like that. Even the drawer, like I just did it 2 inches from the side and just made sure when I pushed it in that it was all the way pushed in. But if you watch a few videos, everybody have a little something that they add to their video that can help. So now I'm trying to sew for the first time. So I was excited that the machine actually was sewing. But the problem the very first time I sewed was that it sewed for a little bit and then it stopped. And it seemed like my take-up lever was jammed. But like I said earlier, it wasn't jammed. It's just that the little nails that was supposed to hold the hand wheel and just kind of help grab onto it to make the needle go up and down, the nail wasn't all the way screwed in. So I just had to take that little side belt cover off and just screw them in again tightly and then put the belt cover back on. And then the needle started going up and down again. So I was so happy. I thought I was going to have to call the industrial sewing machine repairman already after just getting the machine. But so that's why my cover was off, because I literally just started sewing and the machine had stopped already. But once I screwed those little screws in and everything started sewing again, now my next thing was, how do I make straight stitches and how do I adjust the tension? So I found a few videos that showed me how to take the bottom bobbin out of the sewing machine and how to test and see how tight my tension was with the bottom bobbin. So that's pretty much what I was doing here, was just testing to see how tight it was, taking it out, putting it back in, and just trying to have a stitch that doesn't have any loops on the underneath the fabric. I kept sewing and having the little bird's nest effect going on. And so I kept trying to figure out what I was doing wrong on this machine. Like, what is it is going to help me fix this so that way I can make a really nice stitch. So after taking the bottom bobbin out, adjusting the tension, trying all sorts of things, playing with the tension on the front of the sewing machine, it was still just not looking right at all. So once again, I opened that little plate, and through lots of trial and error of taking the bottom bobbin out, putting it back in, adjusting the tension, rethreading the machine, and then sewing again, and then checking it again to see how they look. It just still didn't look right. So after about the third time, I decided to get a little screwdriver and actually there's 2 little screws on the bottom bobbin. And you can tighten them just a little bit, just turn it just a little, but you literally have to like turn it a little bit, put it back in the machine, turn it a little bit, put it back in the machine, until you actually find the perfect combination of tension between the top knob, the tension knob on the top of the machine, and the bottom bobbin, until you can make a nice stitch that's going to be locked in without any loops. And like I said, this is my very first industrial sewing machine. So it literally took me a good bit of trial and error before I realized you know, how to troubleshoot it a little bit, how to thread the machine. The bottom bobbin already had thread on it, so I have not done that yet myself. But I do have the machine actually sewing and making straight stitches. I was able to attach the little lamp onto the back of the machine. That's just a magnet, so it just clamps right onto the back of the machine once you plug it in. And that's literally it. So finally, I got it to sew with some nice straight stitches. I felt so accomplished when I was done to put all of this together myself, and the machine was actually sewing and making beautiful stitches. It's just a really good feeling. So now that she's finally up and running, I'm so excited to see what we create with this new machine. From beautiful everyday pieces to more elevated creative projects I couldn't do before. This is just the beginning. So if you want to see what I create next and learn alongside me and watch these ideas turn into real handmade pieces, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a single project. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.